Hey everyone, how's it going? We have a really exciting session up next, and I'm excited to introduce the speaker. So today we have Shobit Varshney from IBM Consulting. And Shobit, super excited to have you on Arize Observe. Thank you so much for making it out today.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate. Arize Observe has been great. I'm just thrilled with the session lineup. There's just so much to learn. We live in such a beautiful world right now. There's not a single point in time in our history that will be more exciting to be alive. There's so much to learn from the whole broader AI community. Thanks for organizing and getting all the speakers to speak. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who don't know, who are joining, IBM has probably one of the longest histories of innovation. And it's one of the leaders in enterprise AI and the hybrid cloud. Shobit, can you describe for some of the people on the call, what's your role at IBM and how does your team work with enterprises?
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve our clients over the last 111 years. I'm particularly very proud of the societal impact that we have driven with our clients and our ecosystem partners. We've always been maniacally focused on driving real business value for enterprises across the globe. In that journey, I'm a vice president and a senior partner in IBM Consulting. IBM Consulting is roughly half of IBMers and a third of our revenue, so it's fairly substantial, and we work with all of our larger ecosystem partners. In IBM Consulting, we have about 21,000 data scientists and AI developers. We have about done like 50,000 projects in the space. My role is to lead all the AI analytics and IoT business for IBM Consulting in US, Canada, and South America across all the various industries that we serve. So I think one of the coolest jobs in IBM, and I get to partner every day with clients across different industries on their own journey and how they're evolving. Most of our IBM Consulting clients are the Fortune 100, 500 clients, and they're all looking at how to look at their enterprise workflows. How do you make the company smarter? The way work gets done, how do you redefine that? So that's the sweet spot for where IBM Consulting partners with them. And we've been blessed to have so many large enterprises partner with us on their own internal journey to serve their end customers. Very excited to be here and share more details on what we do with our clients here.
Awesome. And for those of you who are watching and are wondering, well, how does this relate to generative? Well, Shobit and his team today probably have some of the most experience actually seeing and helping enterprises put generative into production, using it today. And we'll dive into that in this talk. So just want to kind of set the context for why I think this one will be really exciting. So Shobit, maybe I'll start from the beginning. So you have such a broad vantage point. How today are you seeing enterprises leverage AI at scale? What's the different range that you see? Are there some that are very early, still figuring out AI? Are there some and you see some that are already putting LLMs into production? I mean, how do you see enterprises doing that today?
So Aparna, in my experiences, all the Fortune 100, 500 companies, there's a very vast variance between the level of AI adoption. It significantly varies by industry, by domains. And I get to see this across your healthcare and the federal government versus telcos and banks, things of that nature. In our global client surveys, we see about 52% of the companies that are meaningfully doing AI. So it's more than half today in 2023, right? Unfortunately, we also see with external research that 54% of the projects, of the AI projects, don't make it all the way from pilot to production, or they severely underdeliver on the promise that they started off with, right? So in my view, the biggest impediment to scaling AI are culture and lack of enterprise-wide governance, right? We think about these projects as silos, as specific engagements that are data science-led. And quite often, these companies don't spend enough time understanding the end-to-end process of how work gets done. And that work is what they're trying to make more intelligent. Now, the good news is that the threshold to deploy AI has significantly reduced over the years, especially with generative AI now. We see the pendulum swings from over time. For the last few years, we had a lot of work that was done by siloed PhD data scientists who are working on specific use cases. So you're looking at things like, I can make your forecasting better, right? So it's a very siloed use case in one line of business. That pendulum has now swung a lot more towards, it's a business-led initiative, it's CEO top-down. It is co-creating with the end users in mind, right? So it's more human-centered AI design to workflows. Now, from my vantage point, our large clients are looking at how they work smarter. So if you're a massive bank, massive healthcare payer, or your large telco, you're trying to look at where your major expenses are, where there are human bottlenecks, and where work is getting done. And they're maniacally focused on what do we do around those productivity gains, right? So the pendulum we saw earlier was very much so an outside-in innovation, focusing on very small use cases like, can I put a customer chat bot for interactions on my website? That pendulum is now swung more towards partnering to re-engineer core processes end-to-end, right? So this is an inside-out innovation. And so for example, you would look at a large mortgage company trying to see, how do I make this entire thing paperless? So it's no longer just question answers on the chatbot, but I expect that I can take a picture of my documents and upload them. The whole process has to work securely, regulated, with traceability, explainability on how the decision was made. And every step along that way has been transformed with AI and automation. So we are seeing a lot more of those core processes now, a healthcare payer trying to do benefits administration, things of that nature. So it's very encouraging to see clients now in the co-creation phase, where they're co-creating with AI developers on how the process gets better and better over time.
Got it. So it's not like, a company that, like a tech company that started AI first. It's, how do I take the stuff that we're already doing, business process we're already doing, and how do I kind of automate that and make it faster and better with AI? Is that kind of what you would say?
Exactly. Aparna, the way we talk about this, you're going from a plus AI to an AI first world, right? So it's this talent acquisition, hiring, HR plus AI is where we used to be. Now we're transitioning over to an AI first recruiting process, right? So you're looking at any process and going from the plus AI as an afterthought bolt on to now AI being core as part of that workflow.
Wow. Okay. I love that. All right, here's the $1 million question for you. Everyone's asking, how does this change with generative AI? Or does it just get, propel what's already happening? I mean, it's on everyone's mind. I think another question that's on everyone's mind, like put another way, is how real is this LLM GPT-4 revolution? If you just look at Twitter, it's like, you get a view of the world that everything's changed overnight. What is it really like? Are enterprises really using this technology in the real world?
So Aparna, I've been very encouraged, and the early progress that we are seeing with generative AI with enterprises and the potential it has, and not just now, like in 18 months, this will be a very different world, right? I truly believe that given the scale of what we're doing with clients, right? So like I said earlier, we have worked with 100+ clients in the last just a few months on generative AI. And each one of them is at a different level of their maturity with generative AI, from educating their stakeholders. The CEOs are talking about it in the board presentations, to doing POCs very rapidly, hackathons with like 300+ people globally. We just did one with OpenAI and Azure with our clients. We're just scaling these up very, very rapidly. There are quite a few clients that are in production at scale with generative AI. But it depends on each industry, each use case is at a different trajectory right now. We have about 1,000 team members that have been fully trained on generative AI and in the ground with clients trying to scale these up.
Wow.
Where we see, so clearly, center of attraction of all client discussions. The more they experiment, the more they get excited about it, but the more they have questions as well, right? So for example, by opening up ChatGPT to everybody, OpenAI showcased the raw power of what LLMs can do, right? It is a great way to get everyone excited about the potential of generative AI, and now they see how it can impact the daily work. So when we work with our C-suites, with our clients, they're thinking very top-down. In their mentality, yesterday I was with one of the largest retailers. They are looking at, how do I unlock $100 million to $1 billion of value unlock? right? They're not looking at incrementally improving, say, 1% or 2%, or improving AI like chatbot by a slight portion, right? You're moving your massive data workloads from one cloud, one on-prem to the cloud. That's a multi-year, massive armies of people doing it for 2-3 years. How do you smash that down and unlock that value right away? So we're seeing a lot of core processes being unlocked. If you're a large healthcare payer that does hundreds of thousands of prior authorizations for surgeries, how do I reduce the workload on nurses and medical practitioners in order to make them more productive? That's insane amount of value unlock. That's where the focus of these generative AI large deployments has been. And the C-suite is asking those questions because they're interacting with it. They are using their chat GPT and other functions on a daily basis, everybody from a kid to a CEO. So they see the value, and it is on us to partner together as a community with these large corporates to see how do you unlock value with these core processes. I think that's where the exciting area is for us.
That's super. So thanks for sharing those just small examples. That always helps people kind of see the potential. Any other kind of use cases like that you're seeing? I mean, one takeaway I had in just what you said was it's not necessarily, oh, let me go back and take an existing model that I have and go now try to use LLMs to do it. It's kind of rethinking it from the ground up. How can this existing process, it's more new value unlocks than existing ML rip and replace. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
That's a very good way of thinking about it. And if you think about like there are billions of dollars of business created by business process outsourcing companies like BPOs that do the finance modeling, procurement, and things of that nature, right? We're working with one of the large companies around looking at procurements. Like for the procurement company, you have these massive quotes coming in. You're manually reading the values and comparing it against a contract. Early in the prior authorization use case, you have medical guidelines on what you will approve, and the nurse practitioner goes and compares against clinical evidence, right? All of those are manual. Somebody who is a knowledge worker can look at those two pieces of information, compare the two, and make a decision. So we are seeing a huge acceleration in those places where the productivity gain is massive. You have to be very careful in how you're deploying these to be very auditable, and you need to make sure that they are done in a responsible and ethical way. So those constraints around AI have to be true before you put it into real workloads. But the value unlock with generative AI has been insanely high. Like we are in early stages of that, but we see the potential of where it could be. Like there are multi-billion-dollar businesses that will be rewritten based on how far we can get with generative AI.
Wow. Any common use cases you're seeing, or is it all kind of like you're saying they're kind of core processes within a business, like procurement was an example, hiring's an example. Any common things you're seeing in the wild, or is it very dependent on what a business is doing?
So generally, we have been blown away by how much crowdsourcing is happening with LLM use cases with our clients. We've run these massive hackathons, massive like brainstorming sessions with clients, full day sessions with C-suite all the way down to come up with ideas on where they see the value of this technology. So we have a catalog of over 100 plus high priority use cases that we know are meaningfully moving the needle for our clients, right? Across every domain, across every different industry. There are quite a few cross-industry use cases that we see deployed quite a bit, like you mentioned with customer care or content creation. There are like 4 capabilities that we see that we're deploying for clients. The first one being just looking at summarizing content from documents, from articles, from all sorts of external, internal sources, or it could be these contracts and pulling information from there. The second is around conversational knowledge. Like just the fact that you can converse with GPT across a large body of knowledge, you will expect that, hey, I have the SharePoint site, I have this Dropbox and whatnot. I want to be able to ask questions and follow-ups. If I want to know what's my ambulance coverage, and I can say, oh, by the way, I'm in Colorado, what happens to that, and so on and so forth, right? The third use case is around content creation, around all sorts of marketing or emails, or if I'm a financial advisor, and I have a set of clients where are high net worth individuals, at the end of the day, I sit down and look at what happened to the portfolio. all of that workflow is now getting automated, right? I can see what happened to each of the different stocks, pull in 3 bullets to each, the impact on your stock. It'll create an email and save a draft for you. Just imagine the workload that has reduced, and they can now focus on building a better relationship and knowing their client better than the mechanical work that they would have done. So the third area is around just content creation. And the fourth is around code generation, right? Anything we do with co-pilots, but it's beyond just the tools that you're using for code generation. They are getting better with LLMs. But apart from that, there's a lot of in DevSec, in the development and security, InfoSec, all of those domains. What happens to security vulnerabilities? Can I scan logs and tell you how many attempts happened? Can I convert code from one to the other? Can I move from one BI tool to another BI tool? If I'm moving from Teradata to, say, Azure, how do I do that? What do I do on my Databricks environment? Can I interrogate the data like a human would? Like, those are a lot of code co-creation use cases that we get. Now, when we do these deep dive sessions with our clients, you generally have in the design thinking process, we've created our own way of looking at generative AI design thinking, where we get into a room with our executives, our clients, and on a whiteboard, we're trying to do this exercise of traditional AI use cases. You're looking at ROI and time to value and things of that nature. Now, when I'm working with clients, I have 2 additional axes. On the y-axis is the risk. What's the risk of hallucination to your business? And on the x-axis, it is the precision that's required and how deterministic I need to be, right? So if you look at a use case like call center insights, so I'm looking at a phone call transcription, understanding what's happening. Every attempt of NLP that we used to do used to be on the entire transcript. It was a lot of noise. Now with LLMs, you go from transcript into a small paragraph that's very nuanced. It picks up exactly what happened on the call. And now you have better insights looking at a needle in a haystack. Our clients in bankings and telcos at scale with like hundreds of millions of calls, we're able to do those. Now that's a use case that's in the bottom left corner, because now you're saying it's a low risk, it's an internal operational facing. It has to be like, even if it does not understand exactly in the right word, it's still okay. You're getting the gist of what happened on the call. But if you're talking about, say, healthcare benefits, I want to know what happened, what's my wheelchair coverage. That has to be very deterministic, auditable. If you're exposing it to the external customer, it is very high risk. If it needs to be what's in network, out of network, how much have I spent? So this is the balance that we are seeing between generative AI and our existing enterprise AIs. It's a and equation, not an or. So it's not that people are dumping their chatbots and moving over to ChatGPT style conversations. It is augmenting them, augmenting existing enterprises. So that's where we see the use cases. Bottom left-hand side is where 30, 60, 90 days, let's go production quick. The further out from the axes, you're waiting and watching. You want to make sure that the answers are deterministic, they are well thought through, it is done in a responsible way before you expose it out to the external audience, right?
Wow, well, first, that was a really helpful framework. Thanks for sharing that. And then 2, holy cow, we live in a very cool time. Like there's all of these amazing use cases that I think you're right. Next 18 months, we're going to live in a different world. So you kind of started going that direction. I guess it might be good to pick your brain. What are how should enterprises be thinking about responsible AI in this era? I mean, in the past, I think there's, with maybe what you call more traditional ML with deterministic response, a lot more kind of, deterministic responses. There's metrics and all these things of ways to think about fairness and how to evaluate fairness. Has that been coming up, and how are you all thinking about that?
No, it is front and center. I'm helping a very large company define their generative AI COE right now. And as part of that, one of the big things, the decision points is, hey, we need to make sure that we have a formal ethics board enterprise-wide that can help govern and guide us on how to do these at scale. IBM ourselves, in 2015, we had our chief ethics officer. 2018, we established our ethics board that goes across the entire company. So we are very focused on ethics by design. There's a whole playbook for all of our practitioners. We're building AI models at scale. There are, like, developers need to understand the nuances of the decisions they're making, the way they're writing the code. In the generative AI space, we're seeing like 4 different areas that we have to solve for. There's hallucinations, bias, consent, and security. For all 4 of them, we have a guide on how to think about mitigating these risks. What techniques can be used to reduce the hallucination of a particular model. You need to have repetibility of the answer. You can audit and say where's the provenance to where the document came from. So any knowledge search articles, you need to go back to the original document saying that this portion came from here. So there's a lot of there's a lot of thought that has to be put in across the enterprise on the culture of doing this responsibly. And one of the biggest questions we grapple with is whose definition do you go by? When you're saying you're empowering a mortgage application manager, what's that power dynamic look like between AI and the human and the decisions that are made for the end customer? So there's a very good thought process to this. We do our design workshops with our clients, and we go through a very thorough flow. We look at what's the intent, what's the business intent of what you're trying to build. And this is like a C-suite exercise. You're going through the 4 stages of how do you identify the sources of the data that you have access to? How is it being collected? How do you evaluate the sources and the effects they're going to have on the model? How do you then roll out all of that effort, right? There are like 4 different stages, and we look at what are the primary, secondary, tertiary effects of those. So there's a lot of governance work that needs to be done upfront. So you understand what is it you want to solve for and how you're going to do this enterprise-wide. And the second part of the equation is, do you have the right tooling and the processes to go deploy them in production, right? And when you start to work on tooling, it's an order of magnitude tougher problem to solve for, because now you can't just compare 2 numbers. So as an example, you are generating the email example I gave you, financial advisor generating an email, right? Now there's a base set of emails that you generated that was used in the training data saying these are authorized, they're the right tone for my brand. Now, as AI is generating those net new transcripts, you need to make sure that those are not drifting away too far, right? It's a great partnership that we've had with you in this space as well. When we're looking at deep learning and generative AI, and we're looking at how do you manage drift, how do you identify drift? There's a mechanism to go from a unstructured blob of text into an embedding. How do you trigger things based on how far they're drifting from the baseline? How do you make it easy for a non-developer to go in and say that, hey, these dots are drifting far away, and I need to go analyze and bring a human in the loop? So there's both sides of the equation, understanding how you define a culture across the enterprise for responsible AI, and then all the process and tooling that follows after that to do this end-to-end. I can talk about this topic forever. We should spend some more time offline. There's a lot of content that we've generated, and we've open sourced a lot of our tools and techniques around all the toolkits around ethics by design as well. I'll share some links for you guys to look at as well.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Shobit, we're gonna definitely have to create more content for people to listen to your takes on what's happening here. Okay, I got 2 more questions for you, and then we're gonna be out of time. So the second to the last is, I think it's kind of hitting on that privacy point that you were getting at. So there's today this world of, closed source, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, set of models that are available through closed source. And then there's also open source and open source kind of LLMs available. What's the thought process that enterprises should go through or are going through to evaluate the options available to them?
No, this is a very front and center question for all of our clients. And there are 4 architectural patterns that we deploy these large language models for clients. The first being the simplest. You have a third party that owns the training externally and the fine-tuning done externally, and you're just calling an API. So this could be something like actually going to the ChatGPT website or Midjourneys of the world, right? On the next one from there is an open model like OpenAI or Google Palm or something of that nature that has been brought into a cloud vendor's environment. So Azure's OpenAI services, wrappers around it, or Google's and so on. They provide security. If a company has all the enterprise documents on Azure or Google or AWS and IBM cloud, they can use that locally with that large language model. So we see that pattern quite a bit. And the third pattern is taking a medium-sized large language model and moving it inside the enterprise. It could be a Bart, Robertus of the world, and it's doing one thing around customer experience, really well. It's very, very low cost. The extreme right-hand side of this chart is thinking about building your own large language model, right? Our partnership with companies like Databricks and others, when you start looking at Dolly 2.0 models, how do you go bring a model that becomes your enterprise model? When clients are thinking about these four architecture choices, they're very focused on what happens to intellectual property. So if I buy into the dream of having one AI that understands all of my internal business, that ought to be something that is portable, it is trusted, responsible, and something that I can own as my intellectual property.
Yeah.
So they usually grapple with this, saying that, hey, yeah, sure, chatbot, I could go use a third-party AI to do a chatbot online. But now if I'm trying to make corporate decisions, workflows with it, I need to make sure that that's secure. I think the pendulum is moving towards more build your own purpose-built, much smaller models that can have a higher ROI. And then the beautiful work that's happening with Hugging GPT and Auto GPT and Baby AGI and others is this is going to completely evolve in the next few months.
Yep.
I can't be more excited to see where we take this generative AI space.
And same. I think we're headed into a crazy next 12 to 18 months. Okay, last minute with you. Any parting words for our audience today? I mean, some of them are earlier on in their career. Some of them are watching this because they're trying to deploy LLMs into production. Any parting words about just skills and opportunity that is happening right now and how to be relevant in this environment?
In my entire career, this is the first time I've come to a point where I would rather just drop everything else and be in their shoes. Like, it's just such a great time to be alive and learning, and so many unique opportunities to go learn. So I would say have a maniacal focus on learning. There's just this is evolving really, really quickly. When people like me are looking for budding talent to join our work and practice, we hire people to tell us what to do. We don't hire people to tell them what to do. That would be very stupid to do. So we are looking at the next generation of AI Avengers. I'm very passionate about Marvel. I expect them to come with superpowers, and they understand the domain really well. And now it's our job to point them in the right direction. So we can provide the industry expertise, but we expect them to focus on the capability building, on how do you monitor, how do you build, how do you do this responsibly. So the more you can spend time in getting domain expertise in a particular area, the more we are able to then partner and give you a career path that escalates as well. I would love to be in their shoes, Aparna. It's such a great time.
I feel you. Well, I think that is all we have time for today. Shobit, seriously, I wish this session had been an hour. We could have kept going deeper on every single topic, but thank you so much for being here. If you'd like to connect with Shobit, he'll be available in our Slack community. We'll post his LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to connect with Shobit, pepper him with more questions. We'll find ways to connect you all with him. And Shobit, thank you. This was an amazing talk. I feel like we all walked away being educated. So appreciate you doing this.
Thanks so much, Aparna. Thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm very excited about the rest of the day, and I can't just wait to learn more from the broader AI community. It's a mutual growth experience for all of us, and just very, very excited about what we'll do together in the next few months. Thank you so much.